So I wanted to take up a bit more from what I'd talked about previously about potential and about a global measure for economics by looking at some other, I guess you'd say, ironies about the way you measure things, including, in particular, human economics, which is one of the most, I guess, the most interesting process we know of. So if you, just as one basic example, a lot of measurements, and we've talked about this before, are scalar, meaning that they're only more and less. And a lot of them are also only one-dimensional. So, for example, if you compare the difference between two different economies, you might say one's better than another in a certain respect, or one's got more of this aspect or more of that aspect. Today, people pretty much look at money, and they try to measure things in terms of profit and GDP and things like that. But here's something about money I was just thinking about is not only are there the problems with using a scalar measure in the first place, but also even trying to use a one-dimensional one. So if you took a bunch of lengths, for example, or a bunch of different size shoes, you could put them in order based on the shoe size or the length of the line or something like that. But even something as simple as if you were given a bunch of different locations on the Earth, you couldn't rank them in order of more and less. Maybe how much you wanted to live there you could, but locations themselves aren't just more and less. Locations have to be measured using two numbers at least. You know, if you have a position on the Earth, you might say its latitude and its longitude, or two different streets that are intersecting in a city. It takes two things to say a location on the Earth. And so two of them aren't just more and less, they differ in two different ways. One of the I recently watched a video about a proposed different way of measuring economics, which was that the gross, I think, happiness quotient, I think they called it. Now, I mean, it sounds like an interesting idea because obviously, the pursuit of happiness, this is what life's about. That what the word happiness means that's where there lies the rub. Right. But, this video is pointing out the nation of Bhutan, which I'm not sure how this experiment of theirs is going along, but they were saying their plan was instead of trying to raise the GDP of the nation, they were going to try and make sure the people of the country were happy. That sounds nice when you consider where such ideas are most likely finding their origin, probably in Britain, and what the actual intent is going to be on the lives of the people there. You get this sort of odd outlook that human beings are sort of pleasure centers. How much dopamine are you experiencing right now? How happy are you? As though there's really a different idea of happiness for different people. I mean, to some degree there is, but if you look at what's universal about all people, the joy of being able to discover something, the universality you participate in figuring something out that you could share with any other person on the planet, that's a unique kind of joy. It's a different kind of happiness than having a really delicious meal, although that's nice too. But if you take a look at how Leibniz compared these two things between, short, I forget which word he uses, but a short-term happiness and then a long-term one, and he says that the greatest happiness in life is the improvement of others. That's the greatest happiness that you can experience. So, the way that we do that, the way that we communicate great ideas to other people is not, you can't do it outside of actually touching them as a person. We had a discussion about this last night where Mr. LaRouche had really laid out, and I thought a very beautiful way, how as a part of honesty, a necessary aspect of honesty is putting on the table your own motivations. That facts never make people make decisions. I mean, they're involved in it, but you don't make decisions based only on facts. You don't make arguments based on facts. You might use facts to win an argument, as in a courtroom, but part of whether you're right or not is also what your motivation is in choosing the facts that you use. What are you trying to get at? And that if you exclude that, you're not really capable of being honest. So this also comes across in education and in art and in culture, where if you leave the audience the same as they were when they came in, but with an extra feeling of happiness, you haven't really done your job as a playwright. If you take students through an educational process where their minds don't really operate differently, but they have more facts in them as the as in the bad educational system in Charles Dickens' Hard Times. If you try to cram people full of facts that you can test on a standardized test, or if you give people experiences without actually touching and changing them, it's not a real honest communication. So what we have to do, and what science does, what culture is able to do, is use the perceptual as a sort of a hook to grab people and carry them somewhere higher in a non-perceptual way.
And what we do about it.
Right.
The idea is you must think of the future. All creativity has always been, true creativity, has always been the individual who discovers the future. That discovery of the future is creativity. Mm-hmm. That's what the meaning of creativity is, because you don't have really creativity. If you have extension of known technologies, you have to go to a higher level, a higher energy flux density level, energy flux density. Well, you get the same thing in one other way, in classical musical composition, in great classical drama, and all the work of the great classical arts have the same characteristic, that mankind is intrinsically a creative species. And our way we deal with the universe is use our capability as a advanced species, a growing and ever more advanced species, in order to influence all the systems that are operating, like care of animals, care of plants, organization of planets. They're all the same thing. Is you start from the future, find a point in the future, always look for a point in the future, and work back from that into the present. All creativity, which is usually individual or small groups, all creativity is that form, is always going to the future. Well, that's the point, is human creativity as such is the ability to look into the future. Now, naturally, what we call good fiction always does that. It's called fiction because it doesn't happen yet. But if it's going to happen, if you can cause it to happen, that's creativity. And that's the difference. That's the difference between what human beings must be. And so we have a culture in which we suppress exactly that. Right. That potentiality exists for all human beings, unless they're raised badly or abused or intimidated into that. It's a natural destiny of the human being to think in terms of the future. We do that in the imagination, in classical artistic composition, in scientific discovery, and so forth. And the determination we have to make a discovery, like a medical thing. You've got a death rate in the population from some kind of cause. You struggle to invent a means you've never known before, which will solve that problem, that challenge, meet that challenge. And that is what human beings are truly. If we are not that, we are not living up to the standard of being human. Therefore, the classical artistic composition, like scientific discovery, are the natural state of humanity. Anything which is not that state is an unnatural thing. So